Hey everybody, it's Scott from ScottyTheNJMedium.com. Welcome back. This is the third of 3 so far podcasts. I have with me a very special guest. No, not Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Close.
Better, if you ask me,
Wow.
because he's my best bud. It's JT, the camera guy. You've probably seen him in a couple of my vlogs, and you've definitely seen him behind the scenes for Local Spirits. So, big welcome to Jesse. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. How are we going with Local Spirits? What's going on with that?
Well,
we filmed so much, and we had a great time, and the editing process is a long and perfect making process, so...
Well, Chris has been in the basement nonstop. I think we're going on 3 weeks straight here.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever left the basement, right?
No, we just keep sending Pepsi cans down there.
And... the Hot Pockets.
He's all out of Hot Pockets.
We
have to send him more. And, of course, a steady, healthy batch of beer every once in a while to keep him happy.
Well, the little bit we saw is turning out tremendous.
Tremendous is a great word.
It looks beautiful. There's a whole lot to it. So editing a whole entire show is a lot more than I thought. So we have a lot. We shot hours upon hours of footage, and it's going to be really great. A lot better than I thought it'd be. It's actually going to be entertaining, I hope. But it looked to me like it was. So.
It's going to be, because when they pitched this to me, the Local Spirits thing, I really just didn't know what direction they were going in. I was just like, yeah, let's do it, because it was bars and drinking, which is cool. Right. But then once I saw Chris's vision start to come together on the monitor, I was really impressed with all the actual work and animation and cool stuff he put into it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
You guys had a really good game plan when we went in. And also getting Brian O'Halloran on board was awesome. And he was a really nice guy. He was really cool, really regular dude, hey, let's do this, gung-ho about everything, and we had a blast with him.
I know. And then to be even more stoked that he wants to come back and do the second episode and direct it, which was awesome.
Yes. Yeah, that's going to be an exciting adventure there.
And for everybody listening, when we get ready to go, we'll make sure that we can ask permission from the place we're going, and then we'll invite whoever wants to come up there for when we need to do public scenes and have people in the background, just like we did the first time at Murphy's over in Rumson, except for you might have to pack your bags because this place is out in Pennsylvania.
Oh, a little bit of a hike.
Yeah, a little bit, but apparently it's really going to be worth it. So hopefully that hopefully that works out. Anything worth doing is worth driving to Pennsylvania for, let me tell you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm going to tell you, I wanted to tell you about, and the audience at home, I wanted to tell you about a couple of paranormal experiences I've had, although they be small, maybe in the realm of things that you've seen, but there was 2 different events. So I remember telling you about this a while ago, but for the luxury of our audience at home there.
Yeah, these folks haven't heard your ghost stories.
Yeah. Besides the ones I've seen in Bill Murray movies. So I had a TV, right? So I bought this TV at Best Buy, and it was probably it's right around the time when really the fat, old school projection tube TVs or whatever. It was one of the big ones.
When you needed 2 people to move a 30-inch television.
Yeah, it was right around the time when those were going out, but I didn't have a lot of money. And I just wanted to get something to play old school video games on. And it was I'm going to play old school video games on this thing anyway. Maybe watch a little bit of TV. So I just bought this older. It was a brand new TV, but it was an older model. It was probably the last one they sold brand new at Best Buy. So I went and I got this TV. It's one of those big ones, and I get in my room and plug it in. It works fine. I watch TV. I can play video games on it. Does its job. But weirdly, I just start to notice that it turns itself on. So, and I'm not just sitting there and it's off and boom, it turns itself on. It turns on. It would only do it when I was sleeping or not in the room.
That's interesting.
So yeah, so it'd be like I'd be watching. Might be sitting in my room watching TV, turn it off. 4 hours later, I wake up middle of the night and it's on. I didn't hear it go. I didn't hear it click. I didn't hear anybody come in, and it would never do it if I was sitting. I'd be like, okay, it happened at 4 o'clock in the morning, so I'm gonna wake up like 3:45, and I'm gonna watch. And maybe there's a timer on it. Maybe there's like
Right,
one of those
yeah.
TVs with a timer.
Because we want to look for a lot. Even before you knew what ghost hunting or paranormal investigation was, you were looking for a logical, rational explanation.
Exactly, and I didn't know you at the time. This was years ago.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you could have helped me. So I'm like, there's got to be like a timer on this thing. I remember looking. I don't think there either wasn't a timer functionality or it was off. But I wait till 4 o'clock or okay, no, it's gonna do it again. Doesn't do it. So I go to sleep. I wake up in the morning and it's on. I don't know what time it turned on. It's on. So I would try to time it up. And the timing would never, anytime I waited for whatever time it was never the same. It was only when I wasn't looking or when I was asleep. Or I'd go out and I'd come home and it was on. And I'd be like, who turned on my TV? Nobody turned it on. So, and I actually got in the habit of unplugging it. Or
right.
I think eventually I had it in a power strip and I would turn the power strip off. But I could never narrow down why it would turn off or turn itself on. And I remember I actually called the manufacturing company.
Hold on. That is a step above and beyond looking for a rational explanation. I have to tell you. No, go ahead.
I guess I exhausted all the rational explanations, and I was like, if I unplug it, it's not going to turn itself on. So I just was like, I guess I just resigned to like, this thing is just going to do this. I don't know why, but so eventually started unplugging it. And like it was too much of a pain, so I just unplugged it and left. But like got a different TV. But I remember I eventually called the company. I forget which it was one of these random companies. It wasn't like a classy TV or anything. It was like some cheapo company, and they were like, I was like, what do you guys like? Is this got to be an issue that you guys have? I can't be the only person with a TV turns itself on. They're like, I've never heard of anything like that, and I'm like. Well, I mean, sure, this is like the troubleshooting or like customer service. Like, I'm the only person who's ever had a TV of yours. I'm sure this is like some type of malfunction. Nope, we never heard of anything like that. We'd suggest unplugging it and stop using it. Like, they were just like...
Listen, the manufacturer told their customer, unplug the television and stop using it because the poltergeists are going to come out of it and eat your toast at nighttime. I'm sure the person was
thinking that. But, so is this something that you think that you see, or is it something that is common out there where certain devices or maybe electronic devices will maybe be haunted or something? Or
we definitely know that there's some haunted objects out there, and we're going to get to that. But to back your story up, a couple years ago when I moved one of my other friends across country, I know some people have heard this story before, but we stayed in an old classy hotel room. It was probably about $60. We just needed a place to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. And in the room, they had the kind of television you're talking about. It was about a 27-inch tube TV, so it was big, wide TV. Yeah. And this is 2015 or so. So there were flat screens everywhere. I don't know why this hotel just had this old junky television. In any case, I turned it off. The room was dark, and we went to sleep. And as I was drifting to sleep, I heard the old static charge. You remember that? When the TVs would turn on?
Yes.
And I was like, what the heck? And then I started hearing talking. And I looked up at the TV, and it was slowly turning back on. So the classy hotel, I was like, well, maybe I rolled over on the remote. And then I remembered that the remote was actually bolted to the center dresser in the room. Yeah. So there was no accidentally turning it back on.
Right.
And it happened one time after I turned it off as well. And the person I was in the room with, I was like, yo, this room is haunted for sure. And he was like, I don't care. I'm going to sleep. Right. And there was more to that story, but to back your thing up, yeah.
Oh yeah, and like, this was my bedroom, my bedroom I grew up in. I'd never had anything that I at least thought was paranormal in my bedroom. So it was very much, I never felt that way. It was very much this TV, this particular object.
This was a really, you remember Christine? the movie with the car?
Yeah, yeah.
This is a real Christine moment.
It
So
was.
the object
This
may
object-
have had something
And
to
I
it.
remember feeling like we'll talk about some other objects, but I remember feeling angry a bit in that I was like, man, I just bought this TV, and almost like the TV was like screwing with me. I was like, now I'm just gonna unplug you and put you away,
Right.
because I can't use you because you just torture me.
And it's interesting because it's like a random object from Best Buy that probably came from overseas somewhere. And why would it have some sort of negative attachment to it, right?
Yeah, who
Especially
knows?
like a television. So
Who knows what the history of that the parts, the electronics, like I don't know how something could get attached to.
I mean, we could probably speculate on it all day,
Maybe
which is
somebody who worked on that TV had something connected to them. Maybe maybe the factory worker got caught in the machine.
well, now that
Like,
we're thinking about it,
who
and I hope
knows?
we're not losing any customers here, anybody listening to us. But you know, those old TVs were, I mean, filled with copper wire. And
Right.
copper is a really good conductor, especially for spiritual energy. We use copper for dowsing rods. You know, the sticks that cross and uncross, allegedly finding spirits. So it's really interesting to even think that far into it. So maybe we have to go dig out some old TVs from the trash bin and see if we can get
I'd
them
love
to
to. If anybody,
do some experiments.
If anybody listening, like if you're on YouTube, write in the comments if you've seen anything like this. If you had any electronics that turn themselves on at random times. See, if it was at the same time all the time, I'd be like, okay, there's a rational. It was all different times.
Randomly, yeah.
And I never caught it. I'm telling you, I sat with this thing a long time because I spent money on it. I wanted to work. I never saw it do it on its own. It would always be when I was asleep or gone. It was just on. And I promise nobody would screw with me. But anyway, if you've seen this before, let us know. I'd love to hear if somebody's had this, or maybe somebody's an electrician or something and they have a rational explanation that they could tell us about. I'd love to hear that too. And there was that other thing I was telling you about too. This was more recently in my office. A lot of times I work late in my office and I'll be there by myself and I know nobody else is in the office. And the hallway to get out the door, there's a light switch all the way at the end of the hallway. And 3 different times, I told you about this, the light turned itself off. And I told you, like, and you even said, like, well, you know, was anybody there? Or did you not see somebody or hear somebody? Is it an old light switch that might have like a faulty thing? I'm like, it is an old light switch, but I'm telling you, if somebody were there, it's a long enough hallway where they couldn't have made it down the hallway, flipped the switch, and then out of my eyesight, because the 3rd time it did it, I jumped out into the hallway and nobody was there. So that's another electronic thing turning itself off or on.
Well, at this time, what's more interesting than television, because televisions have IR sensors and they could be affected by random, I don't know, whatever IR light could hit them and turn them on and off. The older ones, maybe, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is an actual physical manipulation of a light switch,
Yes.
which is really a real head scratcher, since you're a very logical thinker and you 3 times got up to check and make sure that nobody was there, and then you passed it on to me, and I did a little digging and I found out that if you have like a light switch that's like 30 or 40 years old, moisture could seep into what they call the gate and cause the actual physical mechanism to slip or be forced back down due to the moisture. But I went and I checked the light switches myself, and there are much more modern light switches that should not be affected in that way. So it's another one of those things, like somebody or something trying to get your attention, possibly.
Yeah, and this is many years later. So it's 2 different little electronic. You know, is it you know, some spirits? Maybe they're talking to me, or maybe some spirits have gotten involved into these devices, or maybe there's a logical explanation. I don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out in life.
That's right, because it's not all paranormal, but we gotta not rule
but
out
sometimes
everything.
it might be.
Yep.
And that's what we're trying to figure out.
And that's the fun of it.
And you had showed me some actually haunted objects, like the ones that I guess you had some other testimony from other people saying this is a haunted object. This thing has brought sadness and anger to other people.
Right, which is the reason we're here.
Oh.
It was the hook for last episode,
Mm.
and I'm glad that you got to join me on this, because basically what happened, if you are not familiar with the first haunted object I acquired, once I get an idea in my head, I get really hot to get my idea out. So I got this crazy idea that I wanted to purchase a haunted object or be given one if that was the case. I searched high and low everywhere. Everything that I came across seemed inauthentic. People were asking outrageous amounts of money. Then finally on Craigslist, I came across this weird clown bust that you could hang on the wall. And it just said haunted object, like, I don't know, $50 or something. And I hit the kid up, or I didn't know he was a kid at the time, but the guy, he's probably in his 20s. And I was like, I'm interested in buying this from you. I'm a paranormal investigator and a psychic medium. I've been looking for something to study. Do you think you can, if I could come and get it from you?
Please come take it.
Well, basically, he told me, he was like, I have people offering me like a lot of money for this, like much more than what I even put it up for.
Right.
But he's like, you seem like the kind of guy this should probably go to, because I know you're not going to mess with it, or you'll have more experience than I had when I came in contact with it, is basically what he said.
I'm sure he wanted a little insight as to what is going on here.
Well, so we met at my favorite convenience store in Toms River. What is it?
Your favorite convenience store in Toms River? Oh, the Wawa, which they have about 37 of them in
Easily
Toms
37
River.
Wawas in Toms River. So we met at in the Wawa parking lot, because we're in New Jersey, and where else are you going to meet somebody?
Of course.
This young man met me there, and he takes his book bag out of his trunk, and he opens it up, and there's this crazy clown that he was saying was haunted. And he's basically like, you can touch it if you want, but I don't know if you're going to want to handle it. But, of course, I was just like, well, let's see if this thing even makes me feel anyway. And I touched it, and I was like, okay, that's good enough for me. It kind of made me, even talking about it makes me feel bad in my stomach. And I asked him what his story was, and the quick rundown was he and his ex-girlfriend purchased the clown, knowing that it could possibly be haunted or cursed. The story was to hang it on the wall where you could see it, and paranormal activity will start happening. They bought it from sketchy people, I guess. He inherited it, the clown, in the breakup, and it laid in a box, and he actually did not believe in the paranormal. And one day he told me, he was like, you know what, I'm going to see if this thing's real or not. And he hangs it on his wall, and within a couple days, faucets start turning on and off in his apartment, things that had never happened before. Toilets flushing, footsteps in the middle of the night, talking, whispering that he can't figure out where it's coming from. And after a couple weeks of this, it turns into depression, sadness, and he tells me, as he's handing me this clown, like, I'm on the brink of losing my job and pretty much everything because this stupid thing has brought it on me. And I was like, wow, that's a really powerful, like, to me, that's a powerful story. And actually, he just asked for like $20. He was like, just give me the gas money that I spent to get here, and we'll call it even, because you're taking this off my hands. So I took it. And within about a day or two is when I showed it to you. And why don't you tell people of your first impression? And I didn't tell you anything about it. I just handed it to you, right?
Right. Yeah, no, you handed me this this clown mask that I guess it's, I don't know if it's like, I don't want to say paper mache, but it's like
it's definitely plaster.
Ceramic or something.
It's plaster.
It's plaster?
Yeah, it's plaster.
Yeah, so it's got some weight to it. It's like, it's a mask, but I don't know how you'd wear it really. I guess maybe some type of like strong strap might, like this, and I imagine it has some age to it.
When I put this out, I'll put a link to it on my Instagram. You guys can check it out.
Yeah, so it probably looks, I mean, at least 50 years old, I'd say. Something, maybe a little 40, 50
I think you're
old.
close. I think on the back of it, somebody actually scrawled the number 76 into it.
Okay.
So I think it was maybe made in 1976.
Okay. Yeah, it had some age to it. Nobody made it yesterday, you know.
No.
It's definitely something that, and it looks very handmade. It almost looks like a Joker from Batman type of thing that they would make. It's creepy looking. It's but he hands it to me, and I just got mad at him for some reason. Like I was like, why would you hand this to me? Like,
yeah, it was legit funny.
This is horrible. Like, why don't hand these things to me? I got real mad for some reason. I'm like, what are you doing? And I give it back to you, and then you tell me the story like that. that's pretty much spot on as to what I expected would happen. I'm like,
And you
man,
know,
I just got really like uncomfortable and angry, and I didn't know the story. You didn't tell me any of that about meeting the kid. This is the first thing I heard about it was you handing it to me, and it just, again, like I felt emotion. I felt like I was annoyed with you for handing it to me, which is like not very out of character for me. I wouldn't just. I'm usually pretty even keeled, I'd say. So it definitely brought some rage into my soul.
now before that encounter, aside from like maybe the television, in your life, did you ever give thought to something, an object to carry spiritual energy, or like, I'm gonna say the word curse, but I hate it. Like a negative attachment with it.
I never felt the way when you handed me that clown mask. Felt. I never had anything that made me feel emotion directly like that. With the TV thing, I was like, well, this thing's haunted. I'm gonna stop using that. I was very much just resigned.
See you later, Hitachi.
Yeah, it's got its own thing going on, and I'm not gonna be involved. So goodbye, TV. I was just like, okay, that's that then. But that never translated. I never got any vibes from the TV other than like it just wanted to turn itself on, almost like it was like playing a game with me.
Right.
The mask one just annoyed me. Just like I was just like, I hated it.
WTF, dude.
I hated it. I don't like the expression on the mask is weird. Everything about it is just giving off strange
But it wasn't
vibes.
it wasn't until I handed it to you that you actually became visibly and emotionally
I think
charged.
I was having a fine day just going about my business.
You were. And then I was like, hold this.
Can you get this thing out of my hands, please, before I throw it? Like,
yeah, that would have been bad.
Yeah, so, no, I never experienced anything like that. It's strange. It's
so,
really strange.
After that, myself and Patrick from the PARS team, we set up a bunch of his cool equipment around it. We set up a really neat, you know what the DVR cameras are? Those little infrared cameras we use?
Sure.
IR camera, I should say. Right, yeah, infrared IR. So, I
knew what you meant.
Yeah, we set the clown up with this stuff. We were getting zero indication with the equipment that anything was happening. Mm-hmm. We left the camera with a full battery on, filming the clown with all the equipment, and Pat and I ran out for about a half hour to grab a bite to eat. We came back, and when we came back, the camera was dead. Now, what's interesting about that is that we use those cameras all the time for investigations, and they'll typically last about 4 hours, just sitting and filming. We checked the tape, and it shut off at about 15 seconds after we left the room. So the camera physically shut off, and the battery was completely done, which is very not typical. Right. So I think there's something to it, and I stored it for a long... As a matter of fact, it's in my trunk now, along with the other haunted object that I just picked up. Now, I use the word haunted on this one kind of loosely at this point because its origins are just strange.
Okay, what is it?
So, for anybody who doesn't know or hasn't checked out my Instagram or any of that kind of stuff yet, a young man came to me that is friends with my sister, and he said that he lived in his house for 2 years. It's he and his wife and his 3-year-old daughter. They just recently started renovations. He went up in his attic, which was filled with his stuff and his wife's stuff. He was doing whatever he was doing up there. He starts to come back down out of the attic and notices a black trash bag on top of all of his things that he doesn't recognize. He opens up the trash bag, and there's 4 dolls in it. There's 2 Chatty Cathys from the 1950s.
Ooh, I'm already scared.
Yeah, like a weird baby wets itself, like probably from like the 90s or so, I would say. And then this black stuffed doll that says Bermuda across the front of it. And it's just like a stuffed doll. It's got a straw hat and like an old tattered dress on it. And he's like, it's not mine. It's not my wife's. And he tells me straight up, he's like, I'm not into ghosts or paranormal or anything, but something made me feel like I didn't want to throw these in the garbage. Because he's like...
It was just in his attic?
It was just in his attic, on top of all of his things. So, it's not like they moved in and it was there.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he's a very, like you, like, if you told me that same story, I'd just believe you because you're a rational thinker. You're
Sure,
not
yeah.
like, oh, ghosts are like if I tell that story to somebody, they'd be like, Scott, relax. There's probably a better explanation. Even though I try to be as rational as I can,
Right.
I often will just jump into the paranormal because that's where I'm at. So he tells me this story and he's like, basically, can you take these things from me? And I said, yep, I'll take them. I took all four of them and they've all been riding in my trunk with me. Now, what's interesting is that everybody that I showed the dolls to, rational thinkers and non-paranormal believers,
Mm-hmm.
and paranormal people that are into this stuff, I show them, and every one of them points to the same doll as the issue, and without me telling them.
Mm.
And I don't give any preface to anything, and they all pick the same doll, the one that says Bermuda across the front.
Oh.
Now, I said, okay, that's the one that I personally would have picked as well as being the issue. So I locked that up in the case with the clown face,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been in the trunk. So, well, it gets interesting because even though it's never made its way in the house, ever since I've brought it into the area of my house, nobody sleeps here. Nobody gets a good night's sleep, and we almost all wake up at about the same time in the middle of the night, about 3 a.m. or so, give or take a half hour. And then on top of that, even last night, I keep a couple crystals in the car. This morning, I had a crazy dream that one of my crystals got broken in half. And I woke up and I thought it was real. And I went out to the car and I was like, oh, it's fine.
Right.
So it's like whatever may or may not be attached to it is very strong. And I have it, of course, locked up at the clown. So who knows if they're like what's the word?
They're conspiring.
Yeah, they're conspiring against me.
Now they have
Yeah.
a team forming in your trunk.
Yeah, so I'm like,
let's get him.
why? And we have a ton of questions about it, like why would somebody attach a curse to it or a ghost to it? What is the attachment, and why are dolls so likely, or things with faces so likely? And instead of like the chair, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like where's the, I don't know, why did they attach? I have no idea. And that's part of the reason why I'm so intrigued by haunted objects. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this probably know who John Zaffis is. Do you know who he is?
No.
Most of us probably know him because we were introduced to him through television. He's known as the Haunted Collector.
Oh.
This gentleman makes it his business basically he's an extremely amazing paranormal investigator. I think 35 or 40 years of experience under his belt, but he has a knack for finding things that are haunted.
Well, I was
like
going to
objects.
say, and this is 0 years of experience in the field talking.
What?
I would say my assumption is that with a lot of objects, put a lot of emotion and attachment to objects, especially dolls and I guess even TVs. Like, we spend a lot of time with these things. We have emotions for these things. We care about a doll. We care about a toy that might be our favorite, or our TV that's important to us, or maybe somebody was emotional about this clown mask. Maybe they were in the circus and that was important to them. And I'd imagine that these people's emotions or auras or their beings in general get somehow intertwined with these non-beings. These non-living things are emotionally connected to the living things that are us. So
Interesting. That's good.
I can see how objects would get intertwined in our living or post-living world. We're all kind of connected. We're all kind of one existence.
Yeah.
And just because you're not a living being doesn't mean you don't exist in the living being world. I don't know. We're all intertwined. All me, you, the TV, the clown mask.
Me and TV are very intertwined.
I love TV. I have an emotional attachment to TV. I think the TV is great. So I can see how these things might be connected.
So for our listeners out there who are checking us out, do me a favor, head down into the comments and let us know if you think that you've ever come across an object that was haunted, or even what your theory might be on if something is haunted or not. We'd really like to hear that, and for you to leave a comment. And believe me when I tell you, we reply to everything, and I'm sure that Jesse will jump in there on the comments and reply to you as well.
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious if anybody's ever had that TV issue before, because I've been baffled about that for many years. But before we sign off, I think this is a opportune time to put a bow on this thing. And say thanks for having me.
Well,
we should. We've
thanks
been
for
going
being-
for
yeah.
about a half hour, so
Your ears
I
are
got a
probably
lot of
tired.
ideas for other stuff. So let's save it for next time.
Yeah, we'll save it for the next one.
And we'll talk to everybody soon. You got anything else you wanna cover before we get out of here? Because I gotta go.
Yeah, he's got to go home. It's late. Nothing. I just want to make sure that everybody visits us at localspiritsusa.com, scottythenjmedium.com. Make sure you like and subscribe to the videos, and the SoundCloud. Both are extremely free, and you could download on SoundCloud on your Wi-Fi and then just listen to it from your phone or whatever else you use to listen to podcasts on, which is my favorite thing. So do that for me. Make sure you give this a like and a recycle and push it forward to your friends. Let's give it up to JT. You want to plug any Instagram stuff?
I don't want to plug anything at all. I just want to say thank you for having me and thank you for listening. And I hope to talk to everybody real soon.
All right. Join us next time, episode 4, where I'm going to talk a little bit about episode 2 of Ghost Hunters and probably about psychic kids, because I think that's a cool topic. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. I'll see you soon.
Something.
I'll psychically see you soon.
Catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye.